I still remember the way her fingers paused halfway through my hair, as if she realized too late what she was doing. It was quiet that evening, the kind of quiet that makes every sound feel heavier. The ticking wall clock. The hum of the refrigerator. Her breathing behind me. I sat on the edge of the couch, trying to look at anything that wasn't her reflection in the dark TV screen. She was my friend's mom. That fact used to mean something. Now, it just made everything harder to explain. It started small. Late nights after her son had gone upstairs. She'd stay behind in the kitchen, a glass of wine in hand, asking about my classes, my apartment, my lack of real food. I joked that her cooking was the only reason I came over. She'd smile, not the polite kind, but something that landed deeper. Something that lingered. She laughed easily, but there was always a flicker behind her eyes, like she was somewhere else for a second before returning. I never asked about it. Maybe I didn't want to know. That night, I was helping her clean up after dinner. Her son had left early for a date. It was just us. She leaned against the counter barefoot, hair falling out of its tie. She asked me if I ever thought about leaving town, doing something bigger. I said I wasn't sure what bigger meant yet. She smiled faintly, then turned away to rinse a glass. "You've got time," she said. "Don't rush to know everything." Her tone wasn't advice, it was regret. I watched her shoulders tighten as she dried the glass. The kitchen light hit the small lines near her eyes, soft but deep, like they'd been carved by years she didn't talk about. I wanted to say something, to ask if she was happy, but I didn't. I just stood there, holding a damp towel, pretending I didn't feel the pull between us. When she finally turned, she looked at me too long. "You've got your mother's eyes," she said. Then, quieter. But not her patience. I didn't know what she meant, but I smiled anyway. She set the glass down and crossed the room, slower than she needed to. Her hand came up, brushing my hair back, a small, absent gesture that wasn't absent at all. My breath caught. Her fingers stayed there for a second, maybe two, before she realized. She pulled her hand away fast, her face unreadable. "I'm sorry," she said. "That was nothing." I cut in, though it didn't sound like me. We stood there, the space between us suddenly smaller than before. The air had weight now. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then to the floor. "God," she whispered, half to herself. "You drive me crazy." I didn't move. Couldn't. Every nerve in me burned for her to say it again. But she didn't. She just turned away, pretending to fix the flowers on the counter that didn't need fixing. I stared at her back, the curve of her shoulder, the way she pressed her lips together like she was holding something in. I wanted to reach out. To tell her it wasn't one-sided. That she wasn't just his mom anymore, not to me. Instead, I said nothing. Outside, rain started tapping the window, light at first, then heavier, until it drowned the silence between us. She looked up, like the sound had startled her. Then, her phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up, glanced at the screen, and froze. Whatever she saw, it changed her face completely. She turned to me, eyes wide, lips parting as if to say something, but didn't. And then the doorbell rang. The doorbell kept ringing, impatient, sharp, until she finally moved. "Stay here," she said softly, like it mattered who was on the other side. I listened from the kitchen, heart in my throat. Her voice shifted, warmer, lighter, the version she used for neighbors or delivery guys. I couldn't make out words, only tones. When the door closed again, she didn't come back right away. I stood there, staring at the counter where her phone still lay face down, screen dark. When she returned, her hair was slightly damp from the rain, and something in her face had changed. "Just a package," she said too casually. She picked up her phone, hesitated, and slipped it into her back pocket without checking it. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that made you aware of every heartbeat, every thought you shouldn't be having. I'd known her for almost 3 years. Since college started, I'd been coming over for dinners, holidays, the occasional advice session when I couldn't figure out what to do with my life. She'd been the adult who actually listened, who didn't talk down to me, who remembered things I said. She was 46, divorced, still wearing the small silver ring from a marriage she called a long lesson. Her ex-husband had remarried quickly. Younger, she'd once added with a crooked smile. Her son never talked about it. Neither did she. I knew things about her she hadn't meant to share, how she hated sleeping with the TV off, how she avoided looking in mirrors in the morning, how she kept her phone on silent because the quiet made her feel more in control. And she knew more about me than anyone else did. She knew my dad hadn't called in 2 years. She knew I'd failed my first semester, and that I pretended I didn't care. That night, we sat across from each other at the small kitchen table. She poured herself another glass of wine but didn't drink it. Her fingers traced the rim instead, slow circles. "You shouldn't be here so much," she said finally, not looking at me. "Do you want me to leave?" Her hand stilled. "That's not what I said." Something about her tone, quiet but frayed, made it worse. She leaned back in her chair, eyes on the ceiling. "You remind me of someone I used to know," she said. "Someone who thought the world was still, open. You make it sound like it's closed." She smiled faintly. "For some of us it is." Her voice was softer now, almost tired. I wanted to ask who she meant. Her ex? Herself? Me? Instead, I reached across the table, not touching her, just close enough that she noticed. She didn't move away. The rain outside had stopped, but the smell of it still hung in the air. She finally looked at me, eyes searching, lips parted like she wanted to say something dangerous, and didn't trust herself. For a second, everything else disappeared, the age gap, the rules, her son upstairs and old memories. Then she did something small but impossible to ignore. She reached out and brushed her thumb across my wrist, barely a touch, but it sent a pulse through me like she'd said everything she couldn't. Neither of us moved after that. We just sat there, her thumb still resting against my skin, until she whispered, "We can't keep doing this," and didn't take her hand away. The next few days I tried not to go over. Tried. But her son texted me midweek, said he'd be out of town for the weekend, asked if I could feed the dog. I said yes before I thought twice. By Saturday night, I was standing in their kitchen again. The same light above the sink, the same half-finished bottle of red on the counter. Except this time, she wasn't surprised to see me. "I figured you'd come," she said, drying her hands with a dish towel. "You always do." There was no judgment in her voice, just something quieter. Resignation, maybe? "I told myself I wouldn't," I said. "I told myself the same thing," she murmured. We didn't touch that night, not really. But everything felt like touching. The way she leaned against the counter. The way my shoulder brushed the edge of hers when we both reached for the same glass. "Why do you keep coming here?" she asked suddenly. Her tone wasn't sharp. It was fragile, like she already knew the answer but needed to hear it out loud. "Because," I said, "you make it feel like I'm not wasting time." She looked down, almost smiled. Then shook her head. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because they stick." The sound of a car pulling up broke everything. Tires on wet gravel. Headlights sweeping across the window. She froze. "He's not supposed to be home yet." "Who?" "My ex." Her voice cracked on the word. "He's been coming around. To see if I've changed my mind." Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door, firm, familiar. She went pale. "Don't move," she whispered. I stood there, barely breathing, as she opened the door halfway. "Mark," she said softly. It's late. I saw your car lights, the man said, his voice low but tense. You've got someone here? I couldn't see his face, just a shadow through the crack. No, she said quickly. Just the dog. He laughed, a short, ugly sound. Right. She stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind her, leaving me in the kitchen, my pulse in my ears. Their voices dropped to murmurs. I caught fragments. You can't keep doing this. It's over, you look tired. When the door finally closed again, she leaned against it, eyes shut, shoulders shaking. I stepped forward before I could think. Are you okay? She nodded, but her voice was barely there. He still thinks there's a version of me that belongs to him. Her hand brushed against mine, accidental, I think, but neither of us moved away. You don't owe him anything, I said. I know. She looked up at me, eyes glassy but steady. But if he finds out about you... Her sentence trailed off. The distance between us vanished. We didn't kiss. We just stood there, breathing the same air, our foreheads almost touching. Her voice came out in a whisper. I wish you were older. And I said, I wish you didn't have to wish that. Somewhere outside, his car door slammed. Then silence. Inside, her hand found mine and stayed there, not out of bravery, but because letting go would have been worse. Sunday came, gray and heavy, the kind of day that already feels like it's holding its breath. I told myself I'd just drop the spare key off, nothing more. No staying. No talking. No reason. But when she opened the door, barefoot, wearing one of his old sweaters, it didn't feel like a choice anymore. You shouldn't be here, she said. You said that last time. And you didn't listen then either. We stood in the doorway, close enough to feel the pull of it, that small, magnetic wrongness that had become our normal. Inside, the house was still. Coffee half drunk, a newspaper folded but unread. She'd been pacing, I could tell from the scattered coasters, the faint path in the rug. What happened? I asked. She hesitated. He came by again last night. I didn't need to ask who. He still has a key, she added, almost whispering. I forgot to change the lock. There was a long silence. Then, does he know about me? Her head snapped up. There's nothing to know. But it came out too fast. Too defensive. I stepped closer. You can't even say it. Say what? That you don't. Her voice cut through the room, sharp, trembling. Don't make this real. The distance between us wasn't more than a few feet, but it felt like miles, the kind you can't walk back once you cross. She turned away, pressing her palms against the counter. You think this is easy for me? You think I don't wake up hating myself for even thinking about you? I swallowed hard. Then stop thinking about me. She laughed, short and bitter. If I could, I would have by now. The words landed somewhere deep, where logic couldn't reach. I moved before my brain caught up, just one step, then another. Her back stiffened when she heard me behind her. Why do you keep me close? I asked quietly. If you're so afraid of me? Her shoulders sank. Because you see me like I'm still alive. That broke something open in me, something I'd been holding too tight. She turned, and for the first time, didn't look away. The air between us thickened, unsteady. I can't be what you want, she said, voice unsteady. I'm too old to pretend this ends well. I'm not asking for forever, I said. I just don't. She stepped back, but I followed. Say it, I whispered. Her hands trembled at her sides. You're making this harder than it already is. Then stop lying. She looked at me like I'd pulled a thread she'd been hiding for years. When she spoke again, it wasn't a whisper anymore. You think I don't want you? God, I do. The silence after that felt electric, dangerous. Her breath hitched. My hands clenched at my sides. We stared at each other, two people too far gone to undo it. Then, from somewhere deep in the house, the front door creaked open. We both froze. A voice called out her name. Her son was home early. Her son's voice echoed down the hallway, casual, half-tired, calling for his mom. For a second, either of us breathed. Then she whispered, "Go. Upstairs. Now." I didn't argue. My body moved before my brain did. I took the back stairs, quiet as possible, my pulse in my ears. From the top landing, I could hear them talking. His tone light. Hers thin, controlled. He said something about coming back early, about wanting to surprise her. She laughed, too loud, too quick. It wasn't the kind of laugh you believe. I leaned against the wall, staring down at my hands, trying to think. Trying not to think. When her footsteps finally came up the stairs, I expected panic. Instead, she looked resigned. "He's downstairs?" I whispered. She nodded. "You shouldn't have come back here." Something in her voice was different now, colder, almost careful. "What's going on?" She didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "He knows." My stomach dropped. "How?" She sighed, rubbing her temple. "He went through my phone. He saw the messages." I felt the world tilt. The messages. The ones where she told me not to come. Where she'd said she was scared of herself. Where I'd said I didn't care. "How much did he see?" "All of it," she said. "He didn't say anything yet, but he knows." The sound of a cabinet closing downstairs made us both flinch. "So what now?" I asked. She looked at me, really looked, and I saw the fear she'd been hiding since this started. Not of him, not of scandal, but of what she'd let herself feel. "I think you should go," she said. "Before he sees you." "And if he already has?" She froze. That silence was enough of an answer. I should have left. Instead, I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "If he knows, it's already too late to pretend." Her eyes darted toward the hallway. "You don't understand. He's angry. Not just at me, at you. He feels betrayed. I never meant to hurt him. You did anyway." She took a shaky breath. "He said something before you came. He told me you'd only been around because of me. That you never really cared about him as a friend." "That's not true." "I know," she said, but the way she said it sounded like she was trying to convince herself too. The floor creaked. Heavy footsteps started up the stairs. She looked at me, panic flickering in her eyes. "Go out the back," she whispered. "Please." I hesitated. "And then what? We just pretend none of this happened?" Her lips parted, a soundless answer. Then her voice cracked. "I can't lose him. Not again. Not for this." The footsteps stopped right outside the door. Her hand brushed my chest, pushing me back. "Go," she mouthed. Then the door handle turned. And I realized something in her eyes, something I hadn't seen before. Not fear. Resolve. Whatever she decided, it didn't include me. The door swung open before I could move. Her son stood there, half shocked, half knowing, the kind of look that says you don't need to explain. His eyes went from me to his mother, back to me again. No yelling. No question. Just that silence, heavy, raw, full of things that wouldn't come out right even if he tried. "Get out," he said finally, his voice quiet but shaking. I looked at her. She didn't look back. "Please," she whispered, not to him, to me. So I did. I brushed past him, down the stairs, every step feeling like it echoed too loud in that small house. The rain had started again outside, soft but constant. I stood on the porch for a second, trying to catch my breath, before I heard her voice behind me. "Wait." When I turned, she was there, no makeup, eyes red, shoulders trembling. Her son wasn't in sight. She closed the door behind her, stepping into the rain like she didn't care it was soaking through her sweater. I told him it was my fault, she said. Because it is. It's not, I said. You didn't do anything wrong. She gave a small, broken laugh. That's the problem. We both know that's not true. The rain made her hair stick to her cheeks. She brushed it away, the same way she'd brushed mine that night, slow, uncertain, too gentle for someone trying to let go. I thought I could control it, she said. That I could keep you at a distance and still feel something good again. But you made it real. I stepped closer. Then don't run from it. Her eyes flicked up to mine, not angry, not afraid. Just tired. If I don't run, it destroys everything I have left. She took another step toward me, close enough that I could see the small scar near her collarbone, the one she always covered with a necklace. Her hand lifted, not to push me away this time, but to rest lightly on my face. Her thumb brushed my cheek, trembling. I wish I'd met you when I still believed in timing, she whispered. And I wish you didn't think this has to end. It already has, she said. Then, after a beat that stretched too long, he deserves better than this. You do. We stood there, drenched, suspended in the kind of silence that says everything words can't. Her hand slipped away. Go home, she said. Before he comes back out here. I wanted to argue, to tell her I wouldn't let her carry all of it alone, but I saw the decision in her eyes. It wasn't cruelty. It was mercy. So I nodded, turned, started walking. Halfway down the street, I heard her voice again, faint over the rain. You drive me crazy, she called out. Still. I stopped, but didn't turn around. Somewhere between love and fear, we'd already made our choice. And it was the same one, to keep the memory, not the mistake. 2 months passed before I saw her again. It was late afternoon, a grocery store parking lot, sunlight low in gold. She was loading bags into her car, hair shorter now, wearing sunglasses even though the sky was clouded. For a second, I thought about pretending I hadn't seen her, slipping past, holding on to the version of her I remembered instead of risking whatever this was now. But she looked up first. And smiled. Not the same kind of smile. Not the one that pulled me in. This one was lighter. Sad, but free of the weight she used to carry. Hey, I said. Hey yourself, she replied, closing the trunk. You look older. I laughed softly. It's only been 2 months. Feels longer, she said. It did. There was no script for this. No roadmap for how two people who'd crossed a line were supposed to stand in daylight and pretend to be normal. Still, the silence between us wasn't painful anymore, just full of things that didn't need to be said. How's your son? I asked. Angry, she admitted. But less so every week. I nodded. Good. She hesitated, studying me. I didn't ruin you, did I? I shook my head. You made me braver. Maybe a little more lost. But not ruined. Her eyes softened. Then it wasn't all a mistake. I smiled at that. It never was. A breeze picked up, carrying the smell of rain, faint, almost familiar. It felt like the world's quiet way of closing a circle. She reached into her bag, pulled out an apple, and offered it to me. Here. For the road. I took it, our fingers brushing, a tiny spark that didn't hurt anymore. Just a memory, alive and fading at once. We stood there another moment. Cars came and went. Life went on around us, indifferent and forgiving. Then she said, You'll meet someone your age. She'll ask why you smile when it rains. Don't tell her. I grinned. I'll tell her it's just a habit I picked up from someone who used to drive me crazy. She laughed, really laughed, and it felt like goodbye without having to say it. As I turned to leave, she called out softly. You were never just a boy, you know. I didn't look back, but my chest tightened. And you were never just his mom. That night, I sat in my car for a long time, the apple still in my hand. The rain started again, light against the windshield. For once, it didn't sound like an ending. Maybe love doesn't always have to survive to mean something. Maybe sometimes it's enough to have been seen, even for a little while. We'd both broken something, rules, promises, expectations, but maybe that's what it takes to remember you're alive. And somewhere between guilt and gratitude, I finally understood, some stories aren't meant to last. They're meant to matter. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Heartbreak, forbidden love, or something that ends in hope?